Imagine waking up as the most powerful woman on Earth, only to begin each day by painting a silent assassin onto your own skin. That's exactly what Queen Elizabeth may have done. Layer after ghost white layer of a luxury cosmetic so toxic it could melt stone, all in the name of appearing spotless before a court that judged every pore. For decades, courtiers praised her porcelain glow, never suspecting that beneath the flawless mask a deadly cocktail of lead and mercury was slowly rewriting the fate of an empire. And when the queen finally collapsed, after 15 defiant hours of standing upright, rumors swirled that her sealed coffin burst open from the poisons she'd absorbed. So how did England's Virgin Queen become the unwitting architect of her own downfall? And what secrets still lurk beneath that perfect veneer? Keep watching, because the story behind her mirror is far darker than any fairy tale. The price of porcelain perfection. Perfection in Elizabeth's court wasn't just admired, it was weaponized. Fashion decreed that a woman's worth shone brightest when her skin looked pale enough to glow in candlelight, a living proclamation that she never toiled under the sun like common folk. Enter Venetian ceruse, a gleaming white paste imported at eye-watering expense and rumored to possess almost mystical power over blemishes, but its secret ingredient, ground white lead steeped in vinegar, was as treacherous as it was luminous. Each morning, Elizabeth's ladies patted the heavy mixture across her face and neck until every scar, freckle, and hint of fatigue vanished beneath a mask of marble. The queen emerged radiant. Unseen, lead salts seeped into her pores, strangling healthy skin cells and leaving microscopic lesions that would demand ever thicker coats the next day. It was a vicious cycle. The very cosmetic designed to erase flaws quietly created new ones, chaining England's monarch to a regimen that grew more toxic with every sunrise. Yet to the dazzled courtiers bowing in her presence, that blinding complexion wasn't a warning. It was proof of untouchable divinity. But the queen's quest for flawless beauty came with a hidden clock already ticking, and in the shadows of the palace, whispers began to circle. If her face required such an otherworldly glow, what, exactly, was she hiding underneath? The answer would expose more than just skin. Stay tuned, because the scars of smallpox were about to spark a darker pact between vanity and survival. Scars, smallpox, and the birth of a mask. In October 1562, a sudden fever swept through Whitehall like a phantom, and the 29-year-old queen spiraled into delirium. Physicians whispered the dreaded word, smallpox. While the court braced for a reign cut short, Elizabeth survived, yet the virus left its signature. Tiny craters etched across her cheeks and temples, reminders that even sovereigns bleed. For a monarch whose authority rested on an image of untouchable perfection, each scar felt like an open challenge, so she struck back with what she knew best. More ceruse, thicker, harsher, relentless. Day by day, the pale veneer grew from a fashionable flourish into an ironclad disguise, sealing both her power and her insecurity beneath a single ghost white layer. Friends noticed her mirrors disappearing, as if reflection itself had become an enemy. Servants reported that she would not tolerate candlelight strong enough to reveal uneven skin. And when ambassadors arrived, the first order was always the same. No one sees the queen until the glow is flawless, but every extra coat of lead paste trapped heat, sweat, and infection beneath a surface that looked smooth only at arm's length. Fresh sores bloomed, demanding yet more layers to hide the damage. The cycle tightened like a garrote: scar, conceal, worsen, repeat, until royalty and mask were indistinguishable. Outwardly, her alabaster face dazzled Europe. Inwardly, a slow siege had begun on bone and blood alike. The queen had beaten smallpox, but in doing so she forged a deadlier alliance with the very toxins that would stalk her to the grave, and the next weapon in that unseen war would glitter bright red on her lips. Lead, mercury, and a silent coup. Inside her body, if Venetian ceruse was the queen's porcelain armor, then her crimson war paint came straight from the underworld. Court apothecaries ground cinnabar, mercury sulfide, into a fine scarlet dust, mixing it with animal fat, to craft a lip stain so vivid it seemed to glow against her paper-white cheeks. A single touch of the stuff left tongues tingling with metallic bitterness. Elizabeth wore it daily. By sunset, flecks of mercury would flake loose, slipping past her lips with every polite smile and royal toast. Inside her bloodstream, trace metals accumulated like secret assassins, attacking the very nerves that controlled mood, memory, and muscle. Courtiers began whispering about sudden rages in council, spells of paralyzing melancholy, and moments when the queen seemed to forget names she had known for years. But make no mistake, cosmetics were merely the opening salvo. Each coat of lead paste sealed pores shut, trapping sweat and bacteria in a dark, airless world where infections thrived. The heavier the mask grew, the more her skin wept beneath it, opening tiny cuts that became highways for poison to rush straight into her veins. Doctors of the age called it nervous vapors, never realizing that the vapors were metals ripping neurons apart. Elizabeth, ever stubborn, met the creeping tremors with more layers, more scarlet, more perfume to drown the sour smell of decay. And every morning, as she sat for hours while ladies brushed white sludge across skin already gray at the edges, the balance of power tipped farther away from the monarch and toward the toxins ruling her flesh. Yet none of it showed on the official portraits. Artists captured a flawless mask frozen in eternal youth, while inside that perfect oval of white and red, lead and mercury plotted a silent coup. Soon the queen's face would no longer be enough to distract prying eyes, and Elizabeth would wield censorship itself like a blade, turning portraits into propaganda to keep her secret locked behind paint. The stage was set for an unprecedented battle between candid truth and curated image, and the stakes were nothing less than the perception of a kingdom. Portraits, propaganda, and the cult of the Mask of Youth images were Elizabeth's second skin. The real face beneath its toxic glaze might have been sagging, pocked, and trembling, but the face that reached her subjects traveled on canvases carefully groomed to defy time. By royal decree, painters were forbidden to show a wrinkle, a blemish, or even a softening jawline. Slip up, and your canvas could be slashed, or you discreetly exiled from court. The 1575 Darnley portrait became the gold standard. A pale, ageless visage, heavy-lidded eyes gleaming with unspoken power, red lips unsullied by the slightest crack. When fresh commissions arrived, many artists simply traced that same face onto new bodies and backgrounds, swapping dress details but never the central illusion. Across Europe, ambassadors carried home nearly identical likenesses, each one a silent reassurance that England's monarch was eternally invincible. This campaign of curated immortality wasn't vanity alone, it was strategy. A queen aging in public risked looking vulnerable, and vulnerability invited plots. By freezing herself at 30, Elizabeth froze political momentum against her. Yet every brushstroke of false youth widened the gap between image and reality. Beneath towering collars and gowns stiff with jewels, swollen glands throbbed from mercury, and hair thinned beneath elaborate wigs scented with sweet herbs to mask the chemical tang of her skin. Courtiers invited to private audiences often reported a chilling trick. They stood at a calculated distance, the queen backlit so fiercely that her chalky mask glowed, washing out telltale shadows. Closer inspection was unthinkable. One did not peer at majesty like a butcher examines meat. But even the tightest choreography couldn't stop rumors leaking through palace walls. Gossip papers, newly popular with a literate merchant class, hinted that the Virgin Queen's famous Mask of Youth was cracking. Some claimed flakes of white drifted from her cheeks when she spoke. Others joked that she dared not laugh for fear her face would crumble. Elizabeth countered the whispers the only way she knew, by doubling down on the myth, commissioning still more portraits that shimmered with impossible perfection. In doing so, she transformed image control into a political weapon centuries ahead of its time, an early masterclass in what we'd now call brand management. Yet locked beneath diamonds and brushstroke lies, her body was paying compound interest on decades of heavy metal vanity. And while painters could immortalize a face, they couldn't hide the silent agony swelling beneath a single, overlooked piece of jewelry. One small ring that refused to let go and would soon tear the queen's secret wide open. The ring that wouldn't budge. For 45 years, Elizabeth wore her coronation ring as if it were welded to bone, a gleaming reminder that the crown and the woman were one. But by the winter of 1603, that symbol of sovereignty had become a ticking time bomb. Decades of swelling fingers, aggravated by constant exposure to lead and mercury, caused the gold band to sink into her flesh until it vanished beneath mottled skin. Court physicians, already alarmed by her trembling hands and drifting focus, finally persuaded the reluctant queen to let them inspect the wound. What they found was grisly, angry tissue bulging around a rim of gold, an oozing trench where infection festered unseen. Rumors suggest the doctors proposed a brutal solution: slice the ring free before the festering could invade her bloodstream. Reports claim Elizabeth recoiled. The idea of blades near royal flesh felt like a last surrender to mortality itself. Days passed. The swelling worsened. Each pulse sent a white-hot sting up her arm, but pride kept her silent. Some courtiers later whispered that the poison from her own makeup had mixed with the rot beneath that ring, creating a lethal cocktail no Tudor leechcraft could drain. By early March, the queen could no longer write without pain. She paced through velvet-draped chambers, refusing to sit or sleep, convinced that if she lay down, she might never rise. Ministers watched in stunned silence as their monarch stood, unmoving, unblinking, for 15 straight hours, leaning only on sheer force of will. When at last her legs buckled, Attendants rushed in with pillows, afraid even to touch the royal body now throbbing with hidden infection. Whether the embedded ring caused full-blown sepsis or merely magnified decades of metal poisoning, what came next would shock the entire kingdom. The Virgin Queen was about to fight her final battle, and this time the enemy was no foreign power but the treacherous alchemy coursing beneath her own porcelain skin. Deathwatch and the legend of the exploding coffin. The last curtain fell in eerie silence. For days, Elizabeth refused the bed she believed would claim her. Instead, she hovered in candlelit chambers, propped against velvet cushions while attendants circled like mute sentinels. Voices that once thundered across Parliament dwindled to whispers. Hands once steady on the scepter now trembled, mottled with infection and the unmistakable gray of lead-sick skin. On the dawn of 24th March, 1603, after 15 stubborn hours upright, the Virgin Queen's knees finally buckled. Seconds later, the woman who had outfoxed popes, pirates, and pretenders slipped away without a single heir or a single answer to the poisons gnawing her from within. The kingdom mourned, but the whispers did not stop. According to Lady-in-Waiting Elizabeth Southwell, the tightly sealed oak coffin began to bulge during the wake. Some swore the lid eventually cracked with a muffled pop, releasing a stench so sharp that pallbearers staggered back in horror. Modern science calls it exploding casket syndrome, the pressure of gases that build as a body decomposes in an airtight box. But in 1603 it felt like divine judgment. Was the blast a final protest from a corpse saturated with mercury and lead? Or merely the natural end of any royal embalming conducted in haste? No chronicler could agree, and the story only grew with every retelling. One truth was undeniable. Whatever secrets Elizabeth tried to bury beneath white paste and scarlet lips refused to stay entombed. Even in death, the Queen's lethal beauty routine had the last grisly word. Yet court physicians still squabbled. Was it pneumonia, sepsis from the ring, cancer, or decades of toxic cosmetics that truly felled her? In the next section, we'll sift rumor from residue and ask the question that haunts medical historians to this day. Did her makeup actually kill her? Did her makeup really kill her? Even 4 centuries later, the coroner's ledger on England's Virgin Queen is still stamped, cause contested. Contemporary rumors blamed everything from pneumonia to a broken heart, but 3 prime suspects keep resurfacing. First, the heavy metal cocktail. Venetian ceruse was nearly 80% white lead, a neurotoxin with zero safe dosage according to the WHO. Add the mercury-rich cinnabar she licked from her crimson lips each day, and you have a slow, IV drip of poisons linked to tremors, memory fog, and violent mood swings, symptoms courtiers began noting in Elizabeth's final decade. Modern toxicologists argue that skin alone absorbs lead too sluggishly to kill outright, but microingestion through open sores or cracked lips can push blood levels into the danger zone over time. Second, the embedded coronation ring. When physicians finally sawed it free in March 1603, they described raw, darkened tissue, textbook sepsis. Reports claim the infection may have tipped an already poisoned body into fatal organ failure. Third, plain old 16th century medicine, or lack of it. Some historians note she showed signs of lung congestion consistent with pneumonia, while others point to age-related cancers that would have gone undiagnosed. Yet even these natural killers might have found easier purchase in a system battered for decades by heavy metals. So, where does the ledger settle? Toxicologists today lean toward a compound verdict: chronic lead and mercury exposure, weakened skin, nerves, and immunity. An infected ring or winter illness delivered the finishing blow, and Elizabeth's ban on post-mortems ensured no one could prove or disprove the link. In other words, the very mask that preserved her image likely erased the evidence. But the debate leaves a chilling takeaway: beauty fads can outlive their makers. And as we'll see in our final chapter, the quest for a flawless face didn't end with ceruse, it merely changed brands. Because 400 years on, we're still flirting with poison in the powder. Legacy, from ceruse to contouring. Have we really learned? Lead-laced ceruse vanished with the rough collars, but the chase for flawless skin never slowed. It just rebranded. In May 2024, European regulators yanked 70-plus glow palettes off shelves after lab tests found illegal levels of chromium, antimony, and lead hiding beneath holographic lids. Across the Atlantic, class action suits still dog makeup giants over talc powders allegedly laced with asbestos, echoing Johnson & Johnson's $8.9 billion settlement and fresh claims from British cancer patients who found asbestos fibers in their own tissue. Yes, the FDA's 2023 snapshot of 50 talc products came back asbestos-free. Progress worth cheering. Yet earlier spot checks in 2020 caught nearly 1 in 5 samples contaminated, proving that safe today can still mean sorry tomorrow. Meanwhile, a 2025 lawsuit keeps Morphe in court over eyeshadow additives never approved for the delicate eye area. Swap the Tudor throne room for TikTok unboxings, and the pattern looks eerily familiar. Brilliant marketing up front, murky chemistry in the fine print. So when future historians dust off our era's palettes, will they marvel at the glow-up or gasp at the toxins we stamped onto our cheeks in pursuit of likes? Remember Elizabeth's porcelain mask? It convinced a nation right up to the moment it cracked. 4 centuries on, the real question hasn't changed. How much danger will we tolerate for the promise of perfection? For 45 years, Elizabeth I ruled behind a flawless white mask, one carefully painted each dawn with the very metals that were thinning her hair, clouding her mind, and, at the end, may have helped stop her heart. The same lead that polished her public image corroded her private flesh. The same mercury that made her lips bloom crimson may have sealed her fate. Even death could not keep her secret contained, if the tale of that swelling coffin is to be believed. And although Cyrus and Cinnabar faded into history, the hunt for perfect skin simply found new aliases in modern labs, glossy ads, and clean beauty labels that change faster than science can test them. So we're left with a mirror-bright lesson. The line between adornment and slow undoing can be perilously thin, and all too easy to cross in the name of looking flawless for one more day. Which raises the real riddle. Behind every shiny compact and trend-setting filter we trust today, what hidden ingredient might future generations call our own poisonous legacy? What if the mask you love wearing is already writing tomorrow's cautionary tale about you? If this dive into royal vanity left you wide-eyed, press like to keep the glow alive, hit subscribe so you don't miss our next hidden tale, and tell us in the comments, what historical figure would you like to hear about next?